say hello, throw your name into the chat, ask a question, and I'd be happy to see if I can answer it. No audio is what somebody says. Okay, what about now? You guys can help us.
Oh, it looks cool on Twitter.
It says no sound. At least there it is. Okay, cool. Thanks, One Nation 89. Appreciate the feedback. We are actually streaming through a couple different platforms, and so we're trying again every single time. It feels like we're doing this brand new because we try different things all the time. That's what happens. So if you have a question, throw it in there. We have been testing. Where else are we streaming? We're streaming on Twitter. We've done some on TikTok as well. Right now we're trying Twitter, see how that goes. YouTube is the main place. That's the main place to find us. So if you are joining us or watching a replay, certainly check us out on YouTube because that's where we have the most stuff. But I'll wait for any questions. And if we don't have questions, that's okay too. We'll just hang out. I don't really have a lecture planned, so I won't. But hey, it looks frozen on my side, but. Eldon Dones, any tips for first-time dads? Well, yeah, I've got a lot of tips. So there, if you watch some of the videos that I have, there's some common themes as far as tips. I think it depends on where you are in the process. If you can clarify, a first-time dad, are you pregnant? So certainly you're in the process, or has the child already been born? And but in general, I can give you some tips. So the first one is to be empathetic, and that means look at the situation from your partner's perspective as well as your child's perspective. So 5 weeks in, meaning 5 weeks old, or 5 weeks pregnant. Sorry. So empathy is the biggest. Not taking things personally is another one. That's a big one. Pregnant. Okay. So during pregnancy, you are going to deal with mood swings, likely. And just like I said, don't take things personally and don't try to understand everything. You kind of just go with the flow. Think of yourself as, a person floating down the river, and you're just going to kind of relax and go with the flow of the river. If you try to fight against it, you're going to smash yourself against the rocks, and it's not going to be pretty. So that's one of the things I can do, or I can say. The other is, just being there for support, and it's a little bit different from being empathetic, but, it's doing things around the house more, even if you already are. And I think it's preparing, it's being involved. A lot of the tips, there's sort of these generic tips that I've had, and if you watch any of those videos, I just had a recent video, those should all be helpful. I don't know about anything specific or new, but if you have a unique situation, I'd be happy to answer a question. One Nation 89, I'm sure you've talked about this in another video. What have you done with sons and spanking? First time dad here, not a fan of spankings, but my parents did it and I turned out great. My son is 3. So One Nation 89, I'm going to tell you, you turned out great because of the tens of thousands of other hours and teachings that your parents did for you, not because they spanked you. I hate to break that news to you. But that's not why you are a good person or a good kid. In fact, despite the fact that they did that, you have become a good person. I am adamantly against any sort of physical punishment towards a child. And so a lot of people think that, and there is zero support that unless you can find it in some sort of research that supports that spanking is long-term effective. Now, it is effective in curbing behavior in the short term, meaning a kid's doing something and you stop it. But that's not what we're going for. We're going for long-term effectiveness. And so I would go with your gut, which is that you're not interested in spanking, and suggest that that's the route that you go regardless of what your parents did, because that is the way that they did it. That's certainly the argument, but wouldn't go there. I think you are in your right thought process that it's not something to do. We typically spank or even getting angry and do all because we don't have other solutions, and our job is to teach children right from wrong, how to be respectful, all these different things, manners, how to live in this world. And the spanking itself doesn't teach anything. It teaches, if you're doing something, you may get punished. It doesn't teach you what is correct. And so that's the part that matters. It's the teaching of the correct way to do something, not, hey, if you do this, you're going to get whacked. That's not the way to make a decision. Think about it as a child gets older, or even as a person gets older. We don't not do things as good people because we're going to go to jail. You don't do things because it's not the right thing to do. It's going to hurt someone. It's taking something from somebody else. There is fear of punishment, and for some people on a shallow level, that maybe that is a deterrent. But we ultimately want to teach right and wrong and how to live in this world. And so the physical punishment doesn't do that. And like I said, that's been proven. And the negative impact of spanking is greater than the positive. And so as a result of that, don't do it. So, hello, Louise from Colombia. Good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Yeah, it's good to see people on here. If you have a question, throw it in the chat. Or, like Louise, just let me know where you're from, where you're joining us from. That'd be cool too. We are streaming into YouTube as well as we're testing Twitter. So if there's any weirdness or, but we like to test things. We've been testing things almost every time, which makes it feel like it's brand new. It's exciting, I guess. We love technical difficulties, our sound's off, our lighting's off, but ultimately, we land in the right spot. One Nation's from Amarillo, right on, in Texas. The Hannibal way you just said, hello, Louise. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I guess sometimes I can be a little, or if I'm not familiar. Sometimes, my accents aren't very good either. When somebody... My Southern California surfer dude accent isn't very good. If you guys are interested in supporting the channel, which really helps, we've got videos. We've got cameras, sound, making the courses, all that stuff. Becoming a member is the best way you actually can support us, and it also helps you. You get access to all the courses. You get access to all the videos. We do live chats. Hey, even if you want to do a one-on-one with me, I can even throw that in there if you're a member. But you've got to become a member and do that. So, also, but if you do like to just give a one-time donation, you can do that too. And if you look on the screen, because Luke has done such a wonderful job of that, you can go to daduniversity.com/support, and that helps us. If you stick it around for from beginning to end, which some people stick around for quite some time, then you probably hear me say it a lot. But what happens is we can see people that come in and come out and come in and come out. So we want to make sure that, they know how to reach us. So again, throw your name in there, or throw your chat in there if you've got any questions. I'll be sure to answer. What is today? Today's Tuesday. We had off yesterday. As you can see, I forgot to. No, I didn't forget. I did it on purpose. I went skiing in Colorado, and that was very fun. I went with some friends, and always nice to have a boys' trip and get away for a couple of days. It's nice to kind of reset. And but I'll tell you what, Denver is, or not Denver, but we're outside of Denver. But Colorado is cold. I'm from San Diego, and it is nice and just like never that high, never that low here. It's kind of just nice. And Colorado is cold, and so it was great. But yeah, my warm blood always has issues with that. So, but good time. Tried to rest a little bit, tried to be offline as much as I could, and just enjoy the scenery and the camaraderie of some friends. So that was fun. Did that for a couple of days, and now it's back to reality, back to working. And again, if you want to become a member, click on that link. Or actually, you can't click on the link, I guess, within the video. I'm used to saying that in my YouTube videos where you can click on the link. But become a member. What I'm curious, though, are the people who are watching us. Are you a member already? Are you a subscriber? At a minimum, become a subscriber. That doesn't cost anything. And the truth is, if you look at the membership, it's pay what feels good. So you can pay a very little amount if you're inclined to do that. Eldon, any advice on what to do to make my stepson feel great that he will be having a little sister or brother? Yeah, I think, I think one of the things you can do, depending on his age, when the child is born, get a gift from the newborn child. It can be something small, but get a gift from the newborn child to your stepson and say, this is from your baby sister. Oh, he's 10, so that's not, okay. That might not work as well. I think paying extra attention to your stepson, because what happens often, although 10, there's enough separation there that it might not be too much, but still, at 10 years old, depending on the temperament of the child and the desire for attention, that usually is a pretty big one. And what happens is, a child that is used to being the center of their parents' world, all of a sudden is not, because there's another little baby there that everybody pays attention to. So I think, it becomes a positive thing in that it's not always that, the older one has to take care of the child. And it's more of like, you get to teach the child and you get to, show them how to do things. And I think, there's enough separation there that could be, interesting for the 10-year-old, but I think you do actually pay extra attention to the 10-year-old on purpose, be aware of it, because everybody's going to be focused on the baby. And so, maybe it's like a regular date, hey, we're going to go out on every Tuesday, we're going to do this, or hey, I want to spend some time doing that. Like, just make sure that he's aware that this new thing is not going to take up all the time and all the effort and all the love, because that's what kids are thinking. They become a little bit selfish. When they're a little bit younger, it's worse. So 10 should be a little bit better because they start becoming a little bit more independent. But yeah, I would just make sure that you give that child extra attention, and they should be okay. And, explain to them, it's like, this is your baby brother or baby sister, and you have an opportunity to show him him or her all the things that you love and that you're interested in and all of that. I think you do want to be careful about making it a burden of any kind. Hey, watch the baby for a while, or hey, I know you want to go out and play, but you got to take care of the baby, and you got be careful that it's not too much, his responsibility, because it's not. And that's how sometimes that I think older siblings resent the younger ones. It's like the younger one keeps them from having the fun that they want. It keeps them. And I'm sure, I have 2 older sisters, and I'm sure that they had to take care of me and watch me and do stuff. And, good thing I have a good relationship. But, I could see there could be some resentment, when you're the baby and everybody pays attention to you, or not. Sometimes it's the opposite. Nobody pays attention to you. But from a sibling standpoint, it's like, hey, I had this time by myself with my parents, and all of a sudden now there's somebody else there. So... Eldon, you are awesome, so thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for everybody. I appreciate you guys coming in and hanging out with me. If you've got a question, throw it in the chat. I see some additional people just came on. Throw your question into the chat. Let me know where you're from and any questions that I can answer. Want to do that. And then also, if you are inclined and want to support the channel, it takes a lot of time. Cameras, sound, time, effort, recordings, all this stuff. It's a lot. Go to daduniversity.com/support and you can support the channel, and that helps us do more of these. We are planning to do this on a regular basis. As of right now, it's 3:00 Pacific time on Tuesdays. We're making this a sort of regular live show. What's really funny is that's as if when I move around, my screen is delayed the same way the other ones. So I move and then I see myself move. I only have my screen up so that I can see the chats. I don't need to see myself, but I can see it in the peripheral. I can see myself move, and I'm distracting. I'm distracting to myself. So what else? It's funny. As I mentioned, I was on a trip, and I'm just mentioning this because I thought it was pretty funny, is that, when you are not aware of something and everybody else that you're around is aware of something. I'll give you an example, like a television show. I was with 6 people or 6 of us, and it's the idea that let's say 5 of them are totally into this television show or whatever, and you've never even heard of it. And that happened with this clothing that they were talking about, or some thing in the news that they were talking. And it's just funny because and then at the same time, I may be aware of something and I can't believe that nobody else is aware of it. And it's just, if something's not in your world, it's just kind of funny. And I was observing that because the specific thing here was a clothing line, and it was a very popular clothing line among the group that we were in, and I had never even heard of it, and they thought I was joking. And so I said, no, I just don't pay attention to that stuff. I'm not yet, I could probably talk about a couple of topics that they're not aware of or that they don't have. So it was just interesting. It was an interesting observation, and that came up a couple of times because, I'm in my own bubble, and I'm the outsider, I guess. Because I don't know these things. But I could talk about certain things at the gym or in my yoga class, and they may not understand it. So anyways, good to see some people joining us. Put your name in the chat. Say hello, where you're from, and any questions you have. I'm trying to, there's good questions. The questions that came in, just not as much activity today, but I see people are online. So if you have a question about fatherhood, about the children, about exercise, yoga, all the topics that I might know something about. Jake, my son still has tantrums after so much teaching and catering to the situation. What are some ways to battle this? So Jake, how old is your son? That would be helpful. And then also, and I'm not, I don't want to, I'll make some assumptions, but I also don't want to make some assumptions. Because we feel like obviously, okay, so he's 4. So here's the first thing that I will say so that maybe you'll feel a little bit better. Totally normal. 4, age 4, even 5, sometimes even a little bit longer to that. So don't feel like you're not a good parent or that you're doing a bunch of stuff wrong or that, this is what happens. A child at 4, I'll give you some sort of, so that's like the place to start. The place to start is totally normal. You're not necessarily doing anything wrong. So now it's like, okay, so what do we do? Because we don't want this to happen. So let's first understand what a tantrum is. A tantrum is typically that the child has some kind of need, desire, want, whatever, or an emotion, and they don't know how to express it, right? So I think the first thing to do, and if you've watched all the videos and you feel like you've done all this stuff, then it could just be repetition that you need to do. I'm going to guess, making assumption again, is that there's probably a couple things that you could do a little bit differently, or maybe, such. Because I know for me, I had huge issues with the tantrums. It was one of my worst things. I was bad at dealing with it. I was bad at, understanding it, and then finally sort of got it. But as I was getting it, my child was also getting older, and the tantrums were stopping. So a couple of things to keep in mind. First is being empathetic. Think about the situation. The fact is that your 4-year-old who doesn't really understand how to regulate emotions, doesn't understand a lot of things of what the emotions are. Us adults don't often have an understanding of our emotions. So keep that in mind. We get angry, we get frustrated, adults have tantrums all the time. We just don't call them tantrums per se. So I think we keep it in perspective that this is a 4-year-old child, hasn't been on the earth very long. And that's a good place to start, is shifting your thoughts a little bit of, hey, this child needs something. Something's going on. They're not responding in a way that, you would like, or that you think that they should, or calmly, or any of that. So have some empathy. That's sort of the first step. The second is remaining calm. And, I certainly don't know how you respond to these and how you deal with it, but I know I had a problem, is that when my child had a tantrum, that made me feel like I wanted to have a tantrum. And so one of the best things that I did was learn to be calm. And I did that by not taking it personally. I didn't take it personally because I was realizing that every child does this, some more than others, but it wasn't that I was a bad parent. It was my child that was feeling a certain way and me not knowing how to communicate with the child. So I think that's an important one too, is remaining calm. And then, you had mentioned tending or catering to the situation. So, when a child has a tantrum, they're really not going to, thank you, Jake. They're really not listening to what it is that you're saying. Imagine let's say you're in an argument and you're yelling or your emotions are high and the person over here is saying something. You're really not listening to what they're saying. You're really not, I should say, you're really not hearing it. And so think of yourself as a 4-year-old and you're crying and your parent is like, stop, shh, be quiet. This is it. What the first thing you have to try to do is to calm the child. And so you certainly aren't going to calm the child by getting upset and doing that. And so sometimes that can be a hug. Sometimes, and I am still a believer that it can be effective, is ignoring the behavior with intention. So, you're not just like walking away from the child and just, abandoning them, but sort of being clear and saying, listen, you need to calm down, or actually calm down. They don't really know what that is. Typically you'll want to say take a deep breath. We taught our children how to take smell the flower, blow out the candle. So you'd smell a flower and then blow out the candle. And what we would try to do is when, things get worked up, is we'd say, smell the flower, blow out the candle. And that helped them sort of calm down. And I think a lot of times that helps. The other thing I would say is that and this is the big one, is the lead up to the tantrum is using the techniques prior to this even happening. So when the child is not going to get their way, that you have to leave a place, that they're not going to share their toy, these are the kinds of situations that your child is not good with, then you have to work on those. And, that's more videos that we need to do. So I would say, Jake, if you are not a member, you would really benefit from the discipline course, because that deals with tantrums. Also the mindset course. And those are all for members. So you can, pay what feels good, a little amount. And but those courses are really, really helpful. That I think it would be beneficial, because those go into great detail and give examples, and then also have you actually do exercises with your kids to, deal with exactly what you're talking about. So you can go to daduniversity.com/support, click on the become a member. I think that's the best thing to do. But I will say, even if you don't do that, and I appreciate, because you said you've been really enjoying the videos, is continue to practice. When a child is in 3, 4, 5, and I can tell you, I'm being honest, those were the hardest years for me. It's why I do the stuff I do now. Like, that is literally, it wasn't because I had a baby born. It was the 2, 3, and then into the 4s. That was where I just knew, I was like, I can't continue the way that I'm doing things. And that's literally how Dad University, came about, is that I was, feeling very, very frustrated and getting upset and not really knowing how to handle these situations. So that's when I started taking courses, started getting certifications and teaching and doing all this stuff, just because I needed to figure this stuff out for myself. And, when you have calmer kids in a calmer house, it's quite the change and quite the improvement. So really do appreciate that. Abe, good to see you. First time father. Congrats in April. I appreciate that. Guys, remember too, if you've got a question, if you're just joining us, saw some additional people coming on, throw your chat. What was the congratulations? Oh, for the see, it's funny. I got Luke behind the scenes, and he's got all these graphics coming up and down, and I'm like, oh wait, what? Because I see things delayed, and it's not the exact. So that's I'm new to this. I've only streamed, I've only done hundreds and hundreds of videos, so I got to figure out what I'm doing. I think my brain's not working. I think I'm still in vacation mode. My brain's not working. That I was off for a couple of days, just relaxing, and in cold weather, that's what happens. Yeah, Jake. Jake's saying about becoming a member, and yeah. And so this is, I'll tell you, this stuff, perfect example. Parenting is like going to the gym, okay? You can't just go a couple of times and then be in shape. Parenting is an ongoing thing, and so is the learning, because your children change. The children evolve, the needs of what they have change, the way that you interact with them change. Dealing with a newborn is completely different than a 2 and 3-year-old, which is completely different than a 5 and 6-year-old, and 7 and 8, and then you get into the preteens and teens. It's like, and so things change, and you don't know. What you did and applied to your child now is not working. And so you have to try something different. And so it is an ongoing process. And I think something that, Jake had brought up about, sort of doing it for a short amount of time, falling off, and then coming back and doing it. I will say too, you can get into like self-improvement overkill, where it's like, you just keep watching stuff and doing things, and you got to kind of take a step back and actually implement them. And that's the part that I really do like about the courses, is that it's a little different than videos because there's like presentation wise, but there's also homework. And the homework pieces are really, really crucial because, you've got to, in fact, I was thinking, which might even be a good thing, we'll put down notes, is like having homework assignments for my YouTube videos might be a good thing. That's actually, I'll put that as a note, because like all of this stuff is great. Everything with like, whether it's parenting or self-help or anything, all of that stuff is great. But like, if you don't go and implement it, it really doesn't matter. It's like, part of the process is like, we think we're getting better because we've listened to it and we process that. But you then have to go and actually practice it over and over and over again. When I say like be empathetic and then, or like, get down to your child's level and give them a hug, or like your child doesn't change their behavior by you doing that once. It just doesn't happen like that. It's sometimes maybe a puppy or a dog, you only do it a couple times and then it's fixed. And then all of a sudden the behavior changes. But a child isn't like that. A child, it's over and over and over again. And even when you're doing it right, it's like the tantrum thing. You can feel like you're continually doing the same things over and over. Maybe you need to switch it up, try something different. And you feel like you've done it and you've tried it over and over. And the other part too, and this is for those who listen to a lot of my content and watch it, is not every kid responds the same way. So where let's say I have 10 different techniques that were about toddler tantrums, and your child doesn't respond to 7 of them. They just don't. They could be a child that really appreciates or likes affection, whereas another child is more like, doesn't want you to do that. They'd rather hear the words that you're saying. Or another one is like, they'd rather just have you spend time with them, and then that's how they feel. Like their love languages are different. The temperament is different. So, when I give advice or I give these tips, it's not, hey, this is the end all be all, and if you do this, it's going to work. It's a suggestion, and oftentimes it may work. It worked for me. It might work for you, but you also have to find what works for you. And so some of that is trying different things. It's continually doing it. And like I said, it's like going to the gym. It's one of those things that you practice on and over and over and over again. And you build up those muscles. I have now built up some very serious, empathy muscles that I never had. And I still have to consciously think about it or practice it. It's like, my daughter was just saying something the other day, and my first inclination, even though I do all of this stuff and I talk about it and I live it, my first thought was to fix the situation, like to tell her what to do. And I have to tell myself, I'm like, just listen. She just needs me to listen to her right now. I don't need to give her advice. She's not asking for advice. And so it's an ongoing process. And so, I correct myself all the time. I make mistakes all the time. And you got to keep doing it. And so that's the thing that's one to grow on, as the kids used to say. Jake, thank you. For anyone new here, literally watching one of your videos makes you feel so much more confident and teach you so much. 10 or 20 of them and you feel like a superhero. Well, that's a good testimonial. Thank you. Then you will absolutely love the courses, because those are good. Again, for those of you joining us, greatly appreciate any support that you can provide us. The number one way is by getting a membership. That helps us. But that also helps you. You get access to the videos and courses and all the things. And then, or you can just do a one-time donation too. But that way you don't, if you do that, that's great. And we appreciate it, but you won't get access to all the other stuff. So, but for some people, they just prefer providing a donation, and that helps support the channel, helps us do this stuff. The time involved, and I don't know how many of you have seen, maybe I do back behind the scenes, but maybe that'll be helpful. People can understand. When you're coming up with the ideas, brainstorming that, then doing scripting, and we actually script the videos so that we know what we're going to talk about. Sometimes it's word for word, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's ideas. And then recording. The actual recording process takes a bit. The editing process takes a bit. It's like the time consumption to make a 5-minute video is pretty substantial. And so, then you talk about the other aspects. It's a lot. And that's how we continue to do this, is through the support of you guys out there. And so that's what's really helpful. I've got time for maybe a couple more. If you guys also too, subscribe to the channel. If you're not a subscriber, geez, that's the easiest thing to do. Just hit that little subscribe button. And I stopped asking people, I think, or maybe I did. We still ask people to subscribe in the videos. I do. I say, and then share it with your friends. I forget what I say. And we are testing we're streaming through Restream. So if you have, you can also see it on Twitter. I think we're doing it. The replay may be on YouTube, though. You'll be able to see. I don't know if is there replays on Twitter. I don't know if there is. We'll see. I'm learning all this stuff. Just like parenting, I get to learn about all this stuff every day. But if you've got a question or just want to say hello, put it in the chat. I'd love to hear from you. I'll try to answer anything I can. And also let me know where you're from. I'm here in San Diego, California. North San Diego, to be exact. And it's supposed to be raining, but I don't know if it is. I can kind of see outside, but not really. We have curtains on our windows that hide the light so we can record. And once in a while we open them. Come out of the dungeon. And so what else is happening? We are going to be recording some videos this week. We released 2, I think, last week, which was good. You can check those out. Been focused a little bit more on the soon-to-be dad, new dad area, just because there seems to be more people asking for that. But if you also have a topic that you really want us to do, put a comment or shoot us an email through the website, or contact us. We definitely take suggestions. I always appreciate people's input if they have ideas. Doing a couple hundred videos, we certainly still have ideas. We've got, spreadsheets full of ideas. But Abe asks, what are some good ideas for a push present upon her delivering our boy? Is she somebody that you can actually ask her? Some women appreciate that. I don't think we did one, so I'm trying to think. I think anything that's going to be about keepsakes. In other words, I don't know. People, sushi. Jake said, because I guess she's not eating it while she's pregnant. Wow, that's, what? Every woman is different. See, my wife, her love language is not gifts. So for her, that stuff doesn't matter. And so it's hard for me, because for me, her love language is acts of service. So like, as a push present, which we didn't necessarily do that, but I could give her coupons for me doing things, like say things that I wouldn't normally do, because for her, me doing things is really, she really likes that. So I think that's individual. I'm trying to think of, I'm thinking of anything that like sort of captures things like albums. There's things that are like, but I don't know that a push present is supposed to be like that. A push present is supposed to really be for her. I've seen people give jewelry and stuff like that, but that's not my forte. You reach somebody who's, just because my wife, I haven't had to think about it. So if she drinks wine, You know, you could give her. I do remember getting a bottle of wine with the delivery date on it, and like we were gonna drink it, you know, at a certain point. Let me see. George, hi from Portugal. 1-year-old daughter only sleeps with her finger inside her mouth. Looks fun, but sometimes it hurts. She even cries when we don't let her stick her finger in. How can we break this habit? Well, it's the same thing with a pacifier. Instead of the finger, you could get a pacifier if your child wants something. Neither of my children cared for pacifiers, so I don't have a ton of experience in that area, but I would replace it with a pacifier if that's okay, if you're okay with that. If you're trying to get them to stop it, you know, it's a question of they're doing that typically to soothe. I mean, that's why they do it. So you know, there's some desire there for the child to soothe. I would say get a pacifier. And so, you know, you just get a little pacifier, stick it in instead, and eventually just every time the thumb is there, you stick the pacifier in, and that should typically do it. I think. So this is the hard part because I don't have a lot of experience with that area, but that's what I would say. So guys, want to tell everybody, Raider, 12 days past due. Oh, well, just wasn't ready. You know, the child, sometimes they need a little bit longer, and it'll be okay. That's sometimes they're just not ready to get out. Maybe, you know, they just, hey, it's probably pretty comfortable in there. You get your meals, it's warm, you don't have to go anywhere. So, you know, think about it from the child's perspective. It's probably it's safe, feels good. You're just, you know, all tucked inside. I get it. So guys, if you've got any last minute questions, throw them in. I don't have a lot of time here. Again, if you want to support the channel, daduniversity.com/support. Always appreciated. And we are going to be doing this next Tuesday, 3 p.m. Pacific. So if you had a chance to join us, come back again and bring some questions with you, and we'll see if we can answer them. And just seeing if there's any last minute ones before I throw down the gauntlet. All right. Well, guys, happy Tuesday. Hug your children. And question coming in from Jessica 92, last minute. Well, this is a good question. So, my 16-month-old will occasionally hit my face. How do I respond? I say no in a firm voice. Well, there's a couple different ways to do this. But the best way that I like, at least, is when your child hits your face, you say no, you do it firmly, but then you also grab their hand and you tell them what to do, which is soft. So let's say they would normally hit your face, you'd grab their hand and you say no, and then you would say soft or nice or gentle or whatever words you want to say. Soft is usually good, soft. And you show them how to hit it, or, you know, to touch softly. And you can even do the same to them and saying soft, you know, and do that. You know, you say no hitting, soft, and do that. And you repeat that over and over and over again. And so what the child has to understand is that's a no. And, you know, they're still learning what no means. You know, it feels very like definitive, and because you're yelling or because you're getting upset, like the child should just know that that's what that means. You shouldn't do that, but they don't. If anything, they're just seeing that, like, they're getting your attention. You know, they're interacting with you. And I mean, a child hitting it's a total normal thing. They are not hitting you to be mean. They're not hitting you. They just don't know a different way to respond. And they probably, whatever they were doing, they hit it once and they got a response. And so that could have been they wanted your attention. It could have been anything. So, Charizard Hunter. My baby girl is spitting up and she has decreased to 2 messy diapers. She's almost 2 months old. Any clue? No fever or anything? ask a doctor. I'm sorry that I can't. I don't know offhand. Now, there's so many different things it could be. There could be, if you're breastfeeding, that's one thing. But if you're doing formula, there could be some aversion to the formula. Yeah, I think in those situations, if you really are concerned, ask your pediatrician or doctor. That's the best thing. I can't give medical advice in that scenario. But it sounds like you're looking for the right things. Fever, nothing. If you've changed food in any way, you've changed, or if the child is breastfeeding, did mom change anything in any way in the diet? There's all kinds of stuff like that. But, they do go through cycles of, where, the bowel movements will change and they do spit up on occasion. There's also oftentimes too, where they could be too much. They're feeding too much. And, they don't really have sometimes a shutoff valve. And so, that could be something. Yeah, changing formula could be something. Testing that and doing something lighter or. But yeah, I would talk with the pediatrician just to make sure. I mean, if you're obviously concerned about the child, which, rightfully so. It doesn't sound like any sort of emergency. I mean, spitting up and changes in bowel movements are a very common thing, but you always want to make sure that, there's nothing more serious going on. So I would check that out. And with that, guys, I want to say thank you. I appreciate everyone being here. And just wanted to say, again, thank you. We're going to do this again next Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. So come join us. Bring your questions. Practice the stuff. Go back into the chat, see the different things, and watch the videos, and practice all you can and become a member. So with that, thank you guys, and we will see you next time. Take care.